Be the first to know Nsem-Pii TV.
Anyway, President Mahama issued civil society organizations in the fight against Galamsey. Omudidi komo regarding whether it's a state of emergency and on President Nebeshe na on illegal mining and answer on your state of emergency. Now, one of the CSOs or Munkomodimu and Nsem-Pii ewo honi epese de brema iwia near the President Mahama speech and so asoso. Engineer Dr. Kenneth Ashigbey. Nsem-Pii no a very, very strong within the meeting. Now, a convener for media coalition against illegal mining. Omejumedi in the fight against Galamsey, I consistent over the years. Now, ne Jumedi no a chief executive officer of Ghana Chamber of Mines. Inti large scale mining community our Ghana no or no ye chief executive officer of the Chamber of Mines into our industry ni mopa onim the air cost within the space or sounds a convener for Ghana coalition against Galamsey. To create the Galamsey fighter, open one of the civil society organizations a jinemo jindende air kon Emma Ghana for a engineer Dr. Kenneth Ashigbey. Near person in his speech kakrabram. During the presentation, some scientists be go a presentation on Ghana's water quality ni the kaka na President Mahama Babeka. Na Dr. Engineer Kenneth Ashigbey beje microphone was masa. Yenya nkwala wa hana wa betwetwetwa entro. Sa reports na ye enye sa na ye calculate Ghana ye water quality. Enti ye na ye wane ye science ni ye sua bi wo school. So you cannot come and lie to us in the Jubilee House. We are not the demands or the President Mahama within the fight of the Galamsey. Etudra. Yenkochi Nsema Dr. Kenneth Ashigbey Ekaye in the Jubilee House to President Mahama and the government in the fight against Galamsey. We are near the President Mahama Nsem-Pii or Jitum. After they are quiet to say, enye His Excellency Nanado Danko Kufuado ni nebusuana na ye Galamsey. Na NDC for the reality on the ground in the Galamsey fight.
The elephant in the room was not mentioned. You heard the Attorney General talk only about Akonta mine. The Attorney General has referred some politically exposed persons to the Iyoko. We've not heard anything about that. There are some politically exposed persons that we, the Ghana Coalition Against Galamsey, have petitioned you about. We've not heard anything about that. There are some chiefs that are complicit in it. So let me read just a short bit of what our ask is. Our ask is that given the unprecedented crisis and the fact that our demands are clear, we ask you, His Excellency, to clearly tell us in granular definition, your granular definition of success in the fight against Galamsey. Also share with us very definitive roadmap that would include key milestones and timelines and how we are going together. We believe that the work that has been done by EPA and all about the level of heavy metals in our water bodies, the turbidity that have gone above 98,000 NTUs, and my brother, the scientist, that report you shared with us, unfortunately, for all of us who are scientists, we know that this is not how you measure water quality. You know that that's not how you do it. You need to deal with the seasonalities. You need to deal with what the water quality index is, what you should be sharing with us and telling us what is it that we've been consuming as a people. And all of us, our lives are at risk. Our lives are at very risk. So we ask that His Excellency, you also tell us what benchmark would compel you to invoke the state of emergency, which you term is your last resort. We believe that the state of emergency is critical to carrying out some of the things that the minister has spoken about, to deal with the ecocidal genocide that is being perpetuated against all of us as Ghanaians. We also ask that the fast-track court that is being mentioned, timelines be put to them, and then the key points be also mentioned. What are the key performance indicators that have been given to our MCs, DCs, police commanders in areas where Galamsey is still going on? And what are the consequences for failure? Because we see a lot of them failing, but nothing is happening to them. We also ask that the chiefs, that some of them that are doing good work, and the examples of them, Mampong, Gemma, and there's a community where they have a water body called...
Dr. Ashigbey, not to rush you, because of time, I would kindly ask that you wrap up, so that...
Okay, I would wrap up.
Yeah.
So our quest is that the chiefs, anywhere that Galamsey is going on, the chiefs are either acquiescing or they know something about it. Those lands be confiscated and the chiefs be investigated for complicity. There are also some communities that are currently fighting Galamsey. The AG at Ronso, for example, the AG should discontinue those cases against the community members who are fighting this on our behalf. And then finally, the last one is the issues around accountability measures. Ghana Water Research should be publishing the quality index of water that is coming to all the treatment plants. The president should also commission a group to be doing food quality tests and publishing that to all of us so that we are sure that we are not consuming poison. And we will submit this document to His Excellency. Thank you very
much. With your presence at this first dialogue on illegal mining. We know that the issues of illegal mining are dear to your hearts and to the hearts of every Ghanaian. And that's why we decided that from time to time we'll hold this dialogue. This is not going to be the last. We'll hold this dialogue to update you on the progress that we're making in the fight against illegal mining. Mining in Ghana has been historical. And when the first Portuguese arrived in Elmina, one of the first things we sold to them was gold. And that's why they built the fort in Elmina. Our grandfathers were involved in mining. The problem with the difference between then and now is that they use rudimentary tools to undertake the mining. And so the capacity to create destruction to the environment was very limited. The whole equation changed when the small-scale mining sector started deploying heavy earth-moving equipment. Before, it was only the big-scale mining sector that was involved in using excavators and bulldozers and huge dump trucks. At a point in time, the small-scale mining sector, which is a legal sector of our mining, it was passed in PNDC time to allow, because we realized that the big mining companies were owned by foreign companies, and Ghanaian small-scale companies that had the capacity to mine were prevented from doing so. And so the mining code was revised to add for small-scale miners. And as I said, there's a difference between small-scale mining and artisanal mining. Artisanal mining was what existed before, using pickaxes and shovels and so on and so forth. But when the new licenses for small-scale mining started, and they could afford to bring in excavators and bulldozers and others, it meant that their ability to destroy the environment was expanded. And that is where we currently have our problem. I want to assure you that we are determined to win this fight. And your contributions, your criticisms, your pressure, putting fire under our feet does not have any problem. We don't have any problem with that. You must continue to do your advocacy, to urge us on, to encourage us to win the fight. As I said in the last media encounter, I said that I had no illusions that within 7 months I was going to win the fight against Galamsey. And I said that it wasn't going to be an event, it was going to be a process. Mistakes have been made. In the first effort we made, we go into a forest reserve. We mapped out the forest reserves that had been that had incursions of illegal miners, and we some of the major forest reserves that were called no-go areas. Unfortunately, after we cleared the illegal miners from there, the security services withdrew and handed over the forest reserve to the Forestry Commission. And so they put their forest guards there. The forest guards don't have the capacity to defend the reserves against the illegal miners. And so lessons learned were that in the next wave, with the formation of NIMOS, that we must deploy. It comes with a cost, because if you send troops and station them permanently to guard the forest reserves, we must feed them, we must provide them with fuel, we must give them vehicles and all the logistics they need to be able to do that. And so that links up with Franklin's question about budget. We need a substantially bigger budget than we have currently to be able to win this war. Happily, budget hearings have started. The budget for next year is going to be presented to Parliament. And my expectation is that the Minister of Finance will give a much bigger allocation to this fight against Galamsey. We also need enough troops. Our troops are stretched. We have so many chieftaincy disputes all over the country, land disputes. And so you go to Sampa, we have troops there. You go to Gonjaland, Savannah, there are troops there. You go to Boko, there are troops there. You go to Nkwanta, our troops are there. And then our troops are also on the border to protect us from terrorism. And so they are spread thin. If we take another batch of them and go and put them in the forest, it means that we are committing most of our troops to other things other than crime prevention and keeping us safe. And so that's why NIMOS is a combination of the police and the army. So all of them contribute troops. And then we also have national security also contributing and all the other agencies. But happily we have some additional troops coming with the winding down of some of the peacekeeping theaters. And so when they come, as many of them as possible, we'll add them to the force so that we're able to dominate all the anti-Galamsey sites and be able to win the battle. As he said, we have targeted 7 major zones in the regions, and the army have come up with a proper strategy. NIMOS has come up with a proper strategy for engaging the illegal miners and making sure that we clear them from especially the forest reserves and the water bodies. One of the important successes is the change in the whole issue of excavators. Excavators came in huge quantities, and I remember that at a point under the previous administration, they asked that permits be gotten before excavators are imported. Meanwhile, the law did not say you should get a permit after, but that was what we came to meet, that you bring the excavator, then you go to the Ministry of Transport and ask for a permit. But the law actually says that you must get a permit before you import the excavator. And so now we're enforcing that law. And so you can't bring an excavator in, you can't put it on a ship, and we're telling the shipping agencies, if you bring an excavator for which there's no permit, we shall penalize you, the shipping agency, for carrying that excavator here to Ghana. In the meantime, we came to meet a huge quantity of excavators in the port. And that is what the lands minister was explaining to you, that we had to decongest the ports because there was no more space for anything. And so we moved them to the military space at the Shire Hills and other locations, and we've corralled them there. One of the successes too is the registration of excavators. Even though the law requires excavators to be registered, nobody was registering their excavator. And so if you look at the DVLA records, there was no registration of excavators. And so anybody could bring in an excavator and take it straight into the forest. Today, we are requiring that every excavator must be registered with the owner of the excavator known. And once that is done, like he said, we've started putting trackers on the excavator so that we know exactly where they are going to. It's not only illegal miners who use excavators, contractors working on our roads, quarries and others all use excavators. And so it's impossible to just put a complete ban on excavators, but we must know where that excavator is being used for construction purposes. And so we now can hold the owners of excavators responsible if we find the excavator in a forest reserve or engaged in illegal mining. And so that's one of the advances that we have made. We started a geofencing policy where it makes it possible for us to know where every excavator is, so that if the excavator moves after where it was geofenced, then we can go and find out where did this excavator go and what is it doing where it has gone. And so that would help us. With regards to turbidity of the water, as the scientist said, it's just about, you can see physically with your eyes, you know, what the turbidity of the water is. The thicker brown it is, the more coffee-like it is, the more polluted it is. The less it is, the less polluted it is. And so, like he said, we are scoring a few successes, especially on the Ankobra. I believe the minister chose the Ankobra to start because it flows through his constituency. And so there are some successes, but like he said, we still have the Pra, we have the Densu, we have the Birim, you know, we have the Ofin and all of them. But that means that we must get more manpower. The Blue Water Guards have started work, and a lot of them are deployed on the Ankobra River. So far, we've recruited 1,000 of them. We pay them an allowance of, if you take away deductions and other taxes, of about 1,500 cedis a month. And so if we have 1,000 of them, and we pay about 1,500 a month, it means for a year, you're talking about roughly 18 million cedis. And that's for 1,000 of them. And so if we scale up, then it means that we need more money to employ more of them. But I endorse it because it gives them an alternative source of income. Because as they are fighting the pollution of our water bodies, they are also earning an income as a kind of alternative livelihood. And so that is something that we'll have to scale up. And so the Minister of Finance in doing the budget must make extra provision. We also have to start reclamation, because it's not enough to just stop them and drive them away and leave the land scarred the way it is. And so there are a few companies that have worked with the United Nations, and they have come up with some trees that help to regenerate the soil and can also take out toxins from the soil. If you've heard about the Green Sahelian Wall that the United Nations was sponsoring, some of the companies involved there have also come and tried those crops in areas that we want to reclaim. And they say that the tests are positive and they can work with us. But of course, we need to use these bulldozers and things we have recovered to level out the land before these vegetative, organisms are put in the land to be able to reclaim the land. So reclamation is one of the areas that we must look to. Happily, we should be able to get some support from green climate funds and a lot of these green funds to assist us in reclamation. But we must put our resources in first. The menace of illegal mining, and I've been trying to find out about best practice, and I found out that apparently we are not the only ones suffering. the high gold price is pushing a lot of people into gold, especially gold. 90% of just, and there's violence, people have died, all kinds of things are happening. So we might not be the only persons, but there are success stories we can learn from. Because if you look at Chile, for instance, they've been able to formalize 90% of their small-scale gold mining. It means 90%, they were in the same situation as us. But today, 90% of their small-scale mining is formalized. And they have control of it, they inspect, they make sure that they're doing the right thing. We can also achieve that. And so even though we're not alone facing that menace, I believe that we can use the best practices of Chile and others to also formalize our small-scale mining sector and make sure that we're able to take control of it. And that is part of what we tried to do when our colleagues died in the helicopter crash. We contacted the big mining companies. Some of them have concessions like 200 miles square. And they are not going to mine all of that concession today or tomorrow. There are some of the places they've explored and found that the gold content is so low that it's not really profitable for them to start mining. But for a small-scale mining company, because of their lower costs, they can mine it effectively. But they must do it responsibly. And so together with the big companies, we said, okay, let's start this cooperative mining, seed part of your concession so that we can move the small-scale miners from where they are causing destruction onto your concessions. And then you can help us to monitor them and make sure that they are doing the right things. So that was what we were going to launch in Obuasi when the tragic accidents happened. The first was Anglo Gold. Anglo Gold agreed, and they carved out a part of the concession. I'm happy to know that since then, Newmont have come on board and are going to assist with the cooperative mining. And some of the other bigger companies have agreed that they will carve out part of their concession so that we can move these illegal small-scale miners onto those places. And so we'll continue to do that. We also have the issue of geology and geological exploration. Currently, our mineral prospects have not been explored adequately. Happily, there's new technology generated by AI that allows those with the technology to partner with our geological survey department. And what they do is they shoot seismic from satellites, and they're able to map out exactly where a mineral prospect is. Currently, when our small-scale miners get a concession, they go and dig